Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And usually, if you guys have watched my other videos, I just usually talk and kind of talk about all the messages or any messages that I've gotten. So lately, I've been writing them down, so I'll just start going off. There really isn't a rhyme or rhythm, just things that I've noticed that's been happening for the past month. So today, one of the things that I got very clearly is that we are moving into a place where our decisions are less, where we make our decisions more from a heart centered place and we let our emotions lead. So I think before, at least for me, and probably for many of you, you make your decisions with your logic and with your brain, right? And then sometimes, like, you feel like you've made a decision that you don't really quite you're not happy with, you don't agree with, and you don't know why. And you're like, for example, it's like breaking up with someone that you didn't really want to break up with because your heart and your mind are not aligned. And it's like sometimes we make a logical decision without speaking to our heart, without the emotional piece of it. And that means that we're out of alignment. Being out of alignment means that we're going to get stuck and we're not going to be able to move forward until our heart and our mind is aligned. Now, the difficulty that I find is that living in this world, in the matrix, requires for us to consistently, or it is promoted and encouraged consistently, for us to be led with our logic. But then your emotions are left to do what? When we really are an emotional being, right? And our logic is logic is personal. Logic is what you decide that logic is. Like my logic is going to be different from your logic, from everybody else's logic, because logic is personal. Logic comes from your personal experience, your personal beliefs, your values, geographical location, religion, all of that. So what we should really be doing is having an emotional feeling and being like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And this is what would really bring me joy. How can I do this logically? Like, how can I make this emotion logically take place? So, of course, this can be used for either good or bad. It's not, um, it's not, it, this can either be good or bad. It's of course people who do bad can use it too, because it's like, well, I want to feel this way or I want to do these things, and they logically, oh, there's a battery, sorry, they logically make that happen. Like, there are those SERIAL, illers. They make it happen even if they can't. And so it's like logic, like there's right and wrong, meaning there is safety and unsafe. There is taking something that's not yours. Like there's right and wrong, and there's logic. Logic and right and wrong are not the same thing, because the right and wrong is always an interference of someone else, a hurting of someone else. That is wrong. That is a universal wrong, right? Logic is, how am I going to make this happen? How is this going to take place in the 3D? How is it going to fruitify in the 3D? So, for example, emotion. I would like a cake. I would like a chocolate cake with chocolate mousse on top. That is my emotion. My emotion is, I want to feel warm and cuddly, and I want a cake to be able to do that, right? Logically, logically, that emotion is supposed to drive that logic. That emotion is supposed to say, well, I want a cake. Logic, how are you going to make that cake happen? So logic is going to go, okay, right, we want a cake. So how are we going to make that happen in the 3D? In the 3D, well, we can bake the cake. We can buy the cake. Well, I don't know if we can buy the cake because you don't have money. We could bake the cake. So let's go buy the stuff to bake the cake. Right? Okay. Let's take another layer. Another layer of this is realizing that like we have to do things in the spirit, in the spiritual or in the emotional or with the divine feminine, which is like all the 5D, right? Realm, to be able to actualize it in the 3D in the masculine and divine masculine world, right? Okay. For example, I want to set up a boundary. My boundary is that I would like to no longer, like, I would like that person to no longer have access to me. How do I do that? Okay, you say, hey, that's what I want. Like, when this person comes into my world, I feel unsafe. You say, logic says, okay, you want me to keep that person away from you. Like, yes. So, in your emotional self, you create a boundary spiritually. You put a distance between you and that person. Logically, in the 3D, logic is going to set that boundary for you in the 3D, but you have to first do it in the 5D. So it's that idea that like what's done in heaven is, cannot be broken, and what's broken in heaven can be broken on earth. Like it's that as above so below. It's that same idea, but it really has to be done in the spiritual first and the emotional first, and then you align that with your logical. Because I think a lot of times we think with our logic first, and then we want the emotional to match it, and that's not going to happen. Our emotional body or our intuition is our higher self a lot of the time. So, what kind of sense would it make for the logic to infer the intuitive or the emotional? And then it goes back to the same thing of like, you know, men lead women. Do they? I mean, the men are the 3D archetype. They are the 3D masters. They are the ones that bring into fruition from up above into the 3D. But we are the connection from up above. So we have to declare it in the spiritual before it can then appear in the 3D. So if you and your partner are aligned, that is how it will work. That is the only way it will work. If your partner is not bringing in 3D things that you are connecting with the 5D, that relationship is not aligned. There is nothing you're going to be able to do for that relationship to work if you guys do not get aligned, because you have to first see it in the spirit, in the spiritual, and then it gets into the 3D. Because in the spiritual you'll be able to see things that are not perceived through the naked eye of the 3D. So that's how it's supposed to work. I don't know if that made any sense, but what I am saying is that things must be done in the 5D, in the spiritual first, in the emotional first, and then logic or the 3D will bring that into the 3D, will bring that forward. So if you have a plan, if you have a business, if you have a mission, if you have children that you want to bring into the world, anything you want to create, it must first be formed, created in the spiritual. For women that are connected to their womb and believe in womb healing and womb power, create it in your womb. Create it first in your womb, because your womb is the seat of creation. It is the portal, a direct access. So you have to first create it in the womb, and then it will come into fruition in the 3D. Okay. And let's see if I got anything else. Ah, I don't know if anybody believes in like twin flame or any of that idea, but messages that I got regarding the twin flame were really interesting, because it really, like, I believe it ties into all of the divine feminine, the dark feminine energy things that we've been hearing and that have like taken up root, which is to focus on the self. The reality of the situation is like what happens to you as a divine feminine is also happening to your partner. What happens to your partner is also happening to you. So, but the mission is that you focus on yourself, because if you focus on yourself, then they can focus on themselves, right? And that will bring you guys like betterment, that will raise both of your vibrations. So the way to get closer to union is to first and foremost focus on yourself, because what happens to you happens to them. Maybe in different levels if your partner, if your twin is not awakened, but if you're the woman and you are awakened, if you're the divine feminine in the partnership and you're awakened, most likely they are too. They're getting there. They're gonna wake up. And so it's like, if you're going through something, if you've learned a lesson, if you're focused on self and you've learned a lesson, they've learned the lesson too. So the only way to awaken quickly is to continuously focus on yourself, because the more you focus on yourself is the more that they'll focus on themselves, and the more lessons you'll learn, and the more awakened you'll get, and the more they awaken. So the big point is, don't focus on them at all, because it actually brings you closer to union, which is weird, because it's a mind F, because that's not the way we've been taught to look at love or at partnership. But this is not a partnership that's like all other partnerships. This is a partnership that will only work if you are walking in your soul purpose. And for you to find your soul purpose, you first must be focused on yourself. Okay? Next thing, let's see if I can find it. I don't know if you guys heard all about the crop circles that were popping up everywhere in the month of June, as we are closing the month of June. But I went down a rabbit hole and looked up a lot about the crop circles and about what they mean and about whatever it is. And a lot of the crop circles were really, like, when I researched the symbols, I went rabbit hole. And a lot of the symbols, I had to go all the way back to indigenous symbols, indigenous tribal symbols, to be able to find where they connect and how they connect. And a lot of them, their connection spoke of balance, that the earth is out of balance, that we are no longer walking in our phases. And those phases could be, the seasons, or our phases, our bodily phases, young children, whatever phase you can think of. And I think I wrote it. Hold on. Like the day, the phases of the day, the phases of the sun, the phases of the seasons, the phases of life. We on earth are out of balance. We have created an imbalanced earth. And earth must be balanced, and that's what they keep trying to tell us. All of the symbols pointed to being imbalanced, either like I said, the location, the seasons, or that we were out of balance in terms of divine feminine and divine masculine, that we were out of balance. And it also pointed to the fact that we have forgotten that whatever happens on one side of the earth also vibrates and happens on the other side. And we now think that when something happens to us, that it doesn't happen over there. Like, our decisions do not impact anyone but the people next to us. And the crop circles were reminding us that is not true. The earth is one organism, and when something happens to us, the vibration carries, and there is an opposite reaction to another part. And so when we are imbalanced here, that means that there is also an imbalance somewhere else, because we have polluted our land and our earth, and we have not farmed, not planted in cyclical cycles with our earth. We are not eating from our earth originally as our plants are being produced in seasons. We are over manufacturing. We are taking, we are graping our earth, the earth, Mother Earth, that we are then causing, even for those who aren't doing that, even for those places that's not being done. By doing this, we are too causing a problem for them because we are all interconnected. That's the word. There's an interconnectedness because the earth is an organism and we are all interconnected. And it doesn't matter if we think that it doesn't impact others. It's impacting others by simply us doing these things, not in the connectedness and the unification of earth, of organisms, of each other, to the basic levels of our bodies, to the highest levels of earth. Right? Okay. Let's see. I feel like that's it. The only thing that I got today was that there are different ways that we each approach. There are different levels that we each approach problems. In the world currently, we have been encouraged and taught to deal with our problems through a cognitive lens, which is the analytical, the logical, and instead we are ignoring our emotional self and we are ignoring our intuitive self. We are no longer making decisions based off of those, which is what which is what people call animalistic level of thinking. And that's what we have been using. And that's why I believe, I don't know if this is true, I haven't done any research, that our forefathers before us years and years ago, their brains were smaller because they didn't need it. But now that we've moved into a cognitive way of thinking, our brains have gotten bigger because we have put so much energy in using our brains, because we no longer use our hearts, we no longer use our sacral, our intuitive knowing, we no longer use our emotional knowing. We base all of our decisions on survival, which is fear, rejection, abandonment, all of it on cognitive, which is the logic that they teach us, because there's like 7 to 9 different types of logic, right? So there goes, and remember, logic is based off of what your own perception, so there goes that. And then our conditioning, so how we were raised, religion, which again they provided to us wonderfully, religion, culture, beliefs. We no longer trust our intuition, we no longer trust our soul, we no longer trust our emotions. Those are the things that we put on the back burner, and then we lean into everything else, and which just put us again out of balance. So I guess to wrap it up today is to regain balance in yourself, balancing out our chakras, balancing out our divine feminine and divine masculine within each and every one of us, and knowing how they work together, understanding how our divine parts work together to make us who we are. I also got that our divine masculine self is our Mars sign, and our divine feminine self is our Venus sign. So look into what those are for you and understand each aspect of those. You know, what a Scorpio Mars acts like, and what a Libra Venus acts like, or what a Taurus Mars acts like, and what a Capricorn Venus acts like, because those are the 2 parts of you. And that will also be able to let you know who you've been letting lead the pack, because remember, they have to be in alignment, and when one of them is shut down, then we are out of alignment. All right, that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope something resonated. I'm just going, I love to talk to y'all, so if you guys liked it, press the like button. If you don't, then too bad. All right, bye.